an empire within the empire. The Ultramar sector was unified and ready to fight against any threat. Yet even the impregnable fortress is vulnerable to foul treachery. The news of the Horus Heresy was first heard only after the Chaos invasion had begun. Across the 500 worlds, the World Eaters and Wordbearers unleashed their never-ending bloodlust on all who stood in their path. Welcome to our series on Warhammer 40k and the Horus Heresy, explaining the origins of the Imperium and Chaos. In this 8th video, we will explore the fate of Ultramar from the Battle of Calth to the Battle of Nuceria. We've also got a quick blast from the absolute opposite end of the fantasy spectrum, drifting from the dells and fogs of a rustic world of old legend, in which the quietness in the air could be the dividend of peace or the prelude to an arcane mystery. It's Legend in the Mist, a new tabletop RPG for adventures in a world of rustic fantasy. Think Lord of the Rings or Wheel of Time. Between two beautiful books, the creators of tabletop smash hit City of Mist bring you new rules and a new setting for an adventure focused on the little guys uncovering the mysteries of the world and becoming changed by their grand adventure. The game develops your characters through arcs as you play, and on the back end gives the MC freedom to resolve issues with quick narrative sweeps or in fine detail, tracking everything about all actors down to their state of mind. And the unique status build-up system means you aren't just hacking away at health bars, you stack statuses to achieve a goal, such as training an animal, convincing an NPC, or banishing an ethereal foe. On their Kickstarter, you can see all the stuff you'll get at various backer levels to enhance the game even further, and it has all the details we don't have time for here. So head on over via our link in the description before the Kickstarter ends on March 7th, and get your ticket to the classical fantasy world of Legend in the Mist. Deceived by the Order of Horus, the Ultramarines mustered at the planet Calth and awaited Wordbearer's reinforcements. According to the War Master, an Orc army was incoming. However, this Orc army did not exist, and was in fact a ploy to make the Ultramarines vulnerable to betrayal. In 007 M31, the promised aid arrived. The newly arrived traitors, led by 1st Captain Cor Phaeron and 1st Chaplain Erebus, told Roboute Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, that Lorgar Aurelian, Wordbearer Primarch, would soon arrive. Before the treachery was revealed, the Loyalists welcomed the fellow legion with open arms, not expecting any foul play. The Ultramarines were by far the largest legion, almost tripling the size of other legions. As such, the force they brought to Calth was substantial, consisting of 200,000 Space Marines, 100 Titans, over 1 million infantry from both Imperial Guard and Mechanicum, extensive armoured support, and the majority of the fleet. All that manpower and artillery was brought to a planet already defended by 500 space defense platforms. The traitors brought 50,000 Space Marines, 130 Titans, 500,000 infantry, who at this point degenerated into Chaos cultists, and the bulk of the Wordbearer's fleet. The traitors deployed their soldiers while pretending to wait for the rest of their army and their Primarch. Suddenly, in a fraction of a second, a Wordbearer's ship rammed a giant orbital shipyard. The explosion gave the traitors an attack signal. Falling debris acted like meteors, bombarding the planet's surface. Scrap code was unleashed on orbital defenses, completely disabling them. With an EMP attack, the Nuceria, Mechanicum communications and the control server were destroyed. On the surface, unsuspecting loyalists trying to regroup with the Wordbearers were shot on sight and decimated. The situation on the ground was bad, but the situation in orbit was worse. Caught unawares, the Ultramarine ships had been powered down for the first 15 minutes of combat. Roboute Guilliman was the first to realize that the attackers were the Wordbearers and not the Orcs. He tried calling Lorgar to gain an understanding of what was happening. However, Lorgar was stalling in order to delay the countermeasures. Guilliman remained composed until he realized that this entire operation was planned by the Ultramarines, and that one of either Horus or Lorgar was involved. Enraged, he sent a looped signal in which he proclaimed that he would kill Lorgar and throw his corpse back to hell. In response, Lorgar summoned a demon on the bridge where Guilliman was. Instead of fighting, this demon launched itself onto the window, breaking it, which sucked the Ultramarines' Primarch out into space. In the following minutes, Erebus and Lorgar summoned hordes of demons in rituals powered by the death of millions of soldiers and civilians. Using their Chaos allies, The word-bearers killed the crew of battleships and battle barges to take control of them after the battle ended. Only the flagship, the Krage's Honor, managed to repel this assault at the cost of the massacre of its crew. With the battle in space won, the traitors began an orbital bombardment of the southern hemisphere of the planet, destroying all its cities and army outposts. In the north, scattered resistance units went into hiding, not being able to withstand the superior firepower of the traitors. They would all have been hunted down in isolation had Captain Remus Vitalis behaved similarly. He, however, made it his mission to restore communications at all costs. Rallying the Ultramarines, Imperial Army, and Mechanicum, he restored a Vox radio using an old device located in a shelter beneath the Gubernator Palace. With communication re-established, the reconnected army could now regroup. However, it was still vastly outnumbered and outgunned by the traitors. Around the same time, the traitors took control of the orbital defense platforms and used them to bombard the sun, sacrificing it to the Chaos Gods. The Loyalists had to take back control of the defense systems as soon as possible if they wished to save Calth from destruction. To achieve that, the scrap code had to be purged, and the orbital control station had to be retaken. This required a joint effort of surface and orbit forces. For now, reinforcements were needed on the surface, and an additional strike group had to be formed in orbit. With intercepted communication, the word-bearers attacked Remus's position with successively larger armies. Meanwhile, the tech priests discovered that an antivirus to the scrap code was uploaded to the civilian data engine in a different city. 10 hours into the battle, Remus took the majority of his forces to take control of the data engine, while leaving a small force to protect the communication center. By now, his army was several times bigger, due to the constant flow of regrouping loyalists. Meanwhile, in orbit, the Krage's Honor was about to be boarded. The Ultramarines went into space to prevent the cutting off of the airlocks. Despite their bravery, there were just too many word-bearers. When defeat was imminent, Roboute Guilliman arrived. He had survived 10 hours in space, with only hate and fury keeping him on his feet. After swiftly killing the boarding team and getting in contact with the surface, the Primarch teleported to the orbital control platform with 50 Space Marines at his side. Pushing through deck by deck, they finally reached the command center occupied by Corferin. In the duel that followed, the Chaos Sorcerer defeated the exhausted Guilliman, yet instead of killing him, Corferin wanted to turn the Primarch to Chaos in order to match Erebus's achievement. This plan backfired when Roboute punched out one of Corferin's hearts. Then, instead of finishing the first captain, the Primarch took control of the orbital platforms. This gave time for Corferin to escape into the warp, with Krage's Honor chasing him so deep into the bowels of the Immaterium that it was lost for the entirety of the Horus Heresy. Back on the surface, the Ultramarines had managed to purge the scrap code. However, in doing so, they earned the attention of the majority of the traitor army, who rushed towards their position. This all-out assault by the word-bearers backfired, as precise orbital strikes from the newly retaken defense systems hammered their position, destroying all the traitors' titans and artillery. However, the cheering of victory swiftly stopped when the sun started emitting severe radiation, scorching all life from the surface. All who were still alive on the planet, civilians, loyalists and traitors alike, went into the underground shelters. The fighting would not stop while a single Ultramarine or word-bearer was still alive. The so-called Underground War continued for another 7 years, until 014 M31, which ended in Loyalist victory. In the end, the Ultramarines lost 120,000 Space Marines, with an additional 24,000 crippled, and more than 500,000 Imperial and Mechanicum infantry were lost. In orbit, 80% of the fleet was destroyed, and barely any surviving vessel was undamaged. The traitors achieved their primary goal of destabilizing Calth and severely crippling the Ultramarines' fleet. However, this came at the cost of almost all their forces. The ambition of Corferin saved the life of Guilliman, and resulted in him losing the battle on the planet's surface. As the Battle of Calth was taking place, the World Eaters and the other half of the Word-Bearers attacked the unsuspecting and vulnerable planets of the Ultramar sector. The traitors in their Shadow Crusade split their army into dozens of smaller fleets, as no defensive force was ready for this betrayal. Hundreds of worlds burned in a matter of a year, with a fifth of Guilliman's domain sacrificed to chaos in order to create the Ruin Storm. These warp phenomena would cut off the entire east sector of the galaxy from Terra, removing the Ultramarines, Dark Angels, and Blood Angels from the main events of the war. Yet even with the death toll exceeding the hundreds of billions, Lorgar needed a final conduit to bring down this calamity in the warp, one he couldn't find. The revelation finally came to him on the planet Armatura. This was the war planet of Ultramar. Military personnel from all branches, be it logistics, navy, infantry, or even Space Marines recruits, trained there, accounting for over 1 billion souls in total. With such an important role, Ultramar was the most defended planet in the sector. It was protected by several layers of orbital defense platforms, around 100 spaceships, 25 Titans, and around 40,000 Evocati, veteran Ultramarines who distinguished themselves in combat. These defenses were considered to be unconquerable by any single fleet, yet these calculations were based on Imperial databases. In secret, Lorgar had built 3 gargantuan Abyss-class battleships, each one requiring 500,000 crewmen to operate, although one of them had been lost in a lone attack on the Ultramar capital Macragge when it was blown up from the inside. In their main assault on Ultramar, the traitors brought the remaining 2 flying weapons of ruin, half their fleet, 100,000 Space Marines from both the Wordbearers and World Eaters, 100 Titans and 2 Primarchs, Lorgar Aurelian and Angron. Without any subtlety, the planet was attacked head-on, unleashing unthinkable levels of firepower on the orbital defenses. On the surface, the Evocati tried to set up defense lines and ambushes, but were ultimately unable to stop the traitors' momentum. What helped the Ultramarines were the differences between the 2 traitor legions. The Wordbearers were slow in their offensive, methodically advancing while sacrificing the captured and wounded enemies to chaos. On the other hand, the World Eaters attacked recklessly, without any hesitation, diving headfirst into melee combat, as all of them, including Angron, had implanted the Butcher's nails into their brain. This machinery blocked any emotion other than anger, while granting pleasure from fighting and carnage. In a short span of time, the 2 traitor armies created a substantial gap between them, one which the Loyalists exploited. In spite of tactical brilliance, the size difference was too great, and all of the defenders died that day, with the planet being bombarded from orbit soon after. Looking at Angron in the wake of the battle, Lorgar discovered the horrible truth. Angron was dying. The Butcher's nails, active non-stop ever since the Horus Heresy started, were destroying Angron's brain. He had at most a month left to live. Lorgar understood that the key to summoning the Ruinstorm lay within the moment of Angron's death. As a friend, he approached Angron and promised him that the key to saving his life was on the planet Nuceria, Angron's homeworld, which had been abandoned by the Imperium. Taking only 1 Abyss-class monstrosity, 2 flagships, the remaining 90 Titans, and 20,000 Space Marines, the expedition ventured to Nuceria. During the journey, Khan, the World Eater's second-in-command, and his friend Argel Tal, a favorite legionary of Lorgar, decided to fix the growing madness in their legions. Insubordination, leaving assigned positions during combat, lack of strategic thinking, and distrust had been spreading like wildfire. Their fear of losing their only friend was strong enough that the 2 developed a state of restrained madness, improving their control when lost to the implants or the chaos spawn inside them. After a month of travel, the first signs of positive change were seen, especially after the World Eaters understood that soon Khan would have to lead them after Angron's death. On Nuceria, Angron found out that the slave lords, who had enslaved him before his reunification with the Emperor, were still in charge of the planet, and that he was remembered as a coward who abandoned those who needed him the most. Enraged, Angron ordered the people of the planet to be executed en masse. A week-long massacre ensued, but during the purging of the last remaining city, the Ultramarines arrived. Guilliman rallied as many survivors as he could, bringing 41 line spaceships, all smaller than the traitor equivalents. It is unknown how many Space Marines and Titans were transported inside them. However, Lorgar decided not to find out, and ordered his fleets to thwart any attempt Guilliman would make at shuttling troops to the surface. The traitor fleet split apart, covering a wide area of orbit, with each vessel fighting independently. The plan worked, with only Guilliman's ship breaking through the blockade. On the surface, the World Eaters lost to the Butcher's Nail's fury and spilled out to attack the landing zones of the Ultramarines. A brutal and chaotic melee followed, fanning out across the scorched city. During this battle, the first signs of cooperation between the traitor legions were seen, overcoming their tempestuous nature and embracing strategic thinking, with Uncle Tal and Khan spearheading the traitor counteroffensive. The fighting stopped for a moment when a giant 22-kilometer-long Wordbearer's flagship started falling from the sky. The smoke trail behind its back split the sky in two. The tsunami created from its impact swept away half of the city. In the following moments, Guilliman found Lorgar and the two Primarchs duelled. The long and equal fight was interrupted by Angron, who swiftly brought Roboute down. Yet at this moment, his brain gave up after being extensively attacked by the Butcher's Nails, as a storm of emotions from his homeworld and thoughts of killing his brother were present in his mind. During the agonizing last moments of Angron, the Ultramarines decided to escape, as both the battles in orbit and on the surface were a lost cause. Following their retreat, Lorgar started his vile ritual, bringing even more pain to Angron. Yet it wasn't the death of Angron that would create the Ruinstorm, as he already considered himself a dead weapon of destruction for the last century. Instead, in an act of ultimate betrayal, Lorgar defiled the Primarch's soul and body as an offer to the Chaos god Khorne, the god who had been denied Sanguinus not so long ago. Thus, the first ever demon Primarch was born, with Butcher's Nails still inside his head, keeping Angron in a state of eternal agony, relieved only by insatiable and ever-growing bloodthirst. Mirroring the actions of his Primarch, Erebus betrayed Argol-Tal, backstabbing him on the back of a captured Titan. The last hope of bringing the Wordbearers and World Eaters out of Chaos influence died with him, damning the two legions to eternal servitude of chaos. With the galaxy split, the majority of the remaining Loyalist forces were removed from the Horus Heresy. Despite all their successes, Chaos was degenerating more and more of the traitors. The first demon Primarch was born. Who will be the next one? Will the Dark Angels be able to break through the Ruinstorm with their Xeno device? Find out in the next episode. Our series on the Warhammer 40k Horus Heresy will continue, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see it. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.